Well, hello again, friends, and welcome back to Friday Roll Call. And if you're brand new here, so excited to welcome you to the forum where we dig deeper into the principles that our team has introduced to you by way of our keynotes, breakout sessions, workshops, and the Top Gun Teamwork Program. And if you and I have not yet met, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Robert Teschner. My call sign is Cujo. I'm the founder and CEO here at VMAX Group, and it's always an honor to be able to connect with you through this forum. And while we don't typically date stamp our roll call messages for the third week in a row, I'm going to do so specifically because our focus this week is going to be on unpacking a little bit from the aviation catastrophes that have taken place this past week in DC and Philadelphia, trying to figure out how to make some sense of this and to learn as leaders what we can learn in order to have a brighter future. And I'll begin by saying this. All of us here at Team VMAX Group are praying for those who lost their lives in these horrific aviation tragedies. We pray for those who lost a loved one, a friend, a compatriot in these horrific tragedies. And we pray that we can have a safer enterprise moving forward based upon what we learn here. But it was absolutely horrific to witness this. Unfortunately, we live in a day and an age where we can capture real time what it was that took place, and it was just so hard to watch all of that. And there's all kinds of ramifications of what it is that we've watched, but the big point and the major emphasis point up front is we're praying for those whose lives were lost and those who are affected by this directly. That's hard to make it through. Good. The other thing that I'd like to express on behalf of all of us here at Team VMAX Group, and specifically for those of you that are traveling right now or who are getting ready to travel next week, do so confident that it's going to be okay. And it's amazing how many people travel with some degree of anxiety and fear, how many people feel like aviation is a little bit unsafe. Just know that the data substantiates just how safe flying is, and it's actually one of those things where if you make it safely to the airport, which is the higher risk enterprise, then you're going to be okay on the airplane. And you just know that. And again, we're watching horrors unfold on TV. You can't escape it. It's everywhere. And it's just a human response to be nervous because of it. Just don't be. All right? Take it from somebody who's going to be right there with you next week. I'm traveling absent fear. I know it's going to be okay. Travel confidently. All right? Good. Now, how can we extract something good from this horror? And I tell you, it's been horrible. It's been horrible just kind of listening to it all, listening to the snippets, getting a sense of what might have happened, listening to the speculation. And the danger of speculation is that it can sometimes veer us away from the truth. It can actually veer us in a direction where emotions start to get the better of us. And oftentimes as we hear certain things like, hey, maybe this wasn't done. Those people weren't where they needed to have been. This thing was a little bit off. Those folks weren't where it can drive us to the point of just being angry and demanding justice, right? They need to be punished. This needs to happen. We need to fire all these people. Da 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 da. And it's a natural human reaction to want to seek an outlet for the pain that we're experiencing. Good. And what we need to recognize as leaders is that that's a major distraction away from what our focus should be. And make no mistake, friends, what our focus should be collectively is figuring out what actually took place, getting to the truth, shining the light on the truth of what took place in order to accurately assess the root causes of what took place in both sets of accidents so that we can have a safer day today than we did yesterday. And in order to get there, it requires us to lead better. In fact, it requires us to get rid of the noise, remove the distractions, and be very intentional about uncovering the truth. And that's really hard to get to in a situation like this. So let's just think about it. Let's just think about the degree of guilt that exists right now amongst members of the various teams. Imagine air traffic control in either location. Imagine maintenance in any of the platforms that are associated. Imagine being a teammate on any of the teams that's associated with these disasters. And there's a degree, everybody's asking themselves, probably to some degree, am I at fault here? Do I bear some responsibility here? There's a sense of guilt, even if it's unfounded. Now you add to that, there's an additional layer of complexity here. You've got people who are in fear, tremendous fear of what it is that could take place now. So they're worried about losing their job. They're worried about potentially getting sued. They're worried about potentially going to jail. They've got all kinds of fears happening, rational and irrational. And in that grand context, it's very easy for human beings to misstate the facts, to hide, cover up, or lose relevant evidence, to outright lie. None of which is supportive of getting to the truth of what took place, shining light on the truth so that we can have accurate analysis, so that we can have a better day today than we had yesterday. So how do we get there? How do we get to that when tensions are high, when emotions are out of control, when we've got all of these conflicting emotions that work against the process of safety? Part of it requires us to be prepared. So let me give you some insight into the way that we deal with safety incidents in the United States Air Force. Okay, so the moment that there's been an accident, an aircraft goes down wherever it might be, certain things are set in motion to include organizing a safety investigation board. And within hours, probably, you've got a board president and you've got relevant experts who are going to come from all over the nation, maybe all over the world, to the crash site, and they're going to spend 30 days there approximately doing an on-scene investigation, trying to figure out why this thing took place so that we can have a safer day the next day. And it's tough duty. I mean, if you're a commander, if you're a safety officer, if you're an expert in certain domains, you're on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. To be called away from your vacation to go to the place for 30 days and to do really tough stuff, sometimes horrible stuff. Good. And one of the things that the safety board president has at their disposal is the ability to use safety privilege, a concept that basically is saying we can have a confidential conversation, you and I can, to make sure we get the truth on the table. In fact, I will read to you specifically from one of the documents on the Air Force site tied to this notion of safety privilege. It says, privileged safety information, including information given to safety investigators pursuant to a promise of confidentiality, is protected by regulation and case law from disclosure outside the safety community. This information may not be used as evidence for disciplinary or adverse administrative actions, to determine liability in claims for or against the United States, or in any other manner in any action by or against the United States. It is protected from release in litigation and is therefore exempt from release pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act. And it might frustrate you to hear this. You might be asking yourself right now, like, are you kidding me? The military has the ability to award confidentiality to military members to make sure that we get the truth out? Are you kidding me? And if you feel that way, I totally understand. I completely do. But just realize this. The military is a human enterprise. And you've got human beings that are subject to the same degree of guilt and emotions and feelings and worries and fears that we're talking about right now in the civilian enterprise. And even military members respond in a very human way, and sometimes not in the best of ways, to those kinds of circumstances. And so this privilege thing is actually a pretty big deal. And this ability to award confidentiality, to have exposure to the truth is a pretty big deal that I relied on to fly safely. And truly, as an aviator myself, who as a fighter squadron commander was responsible for the lives of those who I had the privilege of leading, I appreciated the work of the safety boards, because I knew that through use of all the mechanisms that they had, that we were extracting the correct lessons from the disasters and the mishaps that took place so that we could be a safer enterprise moving forward, so that we could safely fly, fight, and win in a really dangerous domain. And so I hope, and I'm actually confident, that the investigators who are investigating both in the Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia areas are removing the distractions. They're not giving into the noise. They're focused on acquiring the truth so that they can have an accurate analysis to help us to be safer today than we were yesterday, which should be the only ambition right now. Good. So what's the direct lesson for us as leaders in our businesses? And I understand most of you, though not all, but most of you don't run aviation related businesses. I think one of the key lessons is that we have to be prepared when disaster strikes, when some horrific event takes place, and it may not have to do with loss of life. It may be that we just lost a multi-million-dollar deal. It may be that we just lost our most important client, the one that we depend on to keep the doors open and the lights on over here. It may be that something equally disastrous has taken place from a business standpoint. We have to be predisposed to lead through that correctly so that we can extract the proper lessons in order to have a better day today than we had yesterday. And that's tough. It requires us to be ready. It requires us to be ready to have high emotional intelligence, to not go down the path right off the bat of demanding justice and seeking retribution and trying. No, it requires us to find a way to shine light on the truth, so that we can extract the correct learning from this, so that we can intentionally build a brighter tomorrow. And that means that we've got to have the mechanisms in place today, right now. Because if you wait until disaster strikes, until the really bad thing has taken place to then figure out how you're going to deal with it, I guarantee you're going to be way behind the power curve. It's not going to go well, and you're not going to lead the way that you need to. So maybe an opportunity this weekend is to think through what the worst case disaster might be that you could experience in your business, and to think through how it is that you're going to lead through that effectively. Think through what it is that you need to have, what mechanisms in place already. Maybe it's a checklist for I'm going to do this, and this. Maybe it's a means of immediately capturing the truth and having the measures in place to be able to do so with the teammates so that you can avoid the natural humanness that works against your ability to explore, so that you can debrief to win effectively. And if we can extract that at this time, that's a good thing. And so I'll end on the same note at which I began. All of us here at Team VMAX Group, we're praying. We're praying for those whose lives were lost and for those whose lives are forever changed by virtue of the loss of life. That's so difficult. And yet, despite the horror that we all witnessed, you and I, we're going to continue to fly safely. We're going to fly confidently. We're going to fly absent fear. We're going to be okay. And really, we need to be ready to navigate these kinds of disasters in our lives with a focus on shining light on the facts to get to the truth so that we can learn correctly to position ourselves to have a brighter day tomorrow. And if we can do that, then we're going to be better leaders tomorrow than we are today. Good, and just know, as is always the case, all of us here at Team VMAX Group, we're rooting for you. We want you to keep on leading them well, and I personally look forward to speaking with you again next Friday.